Hello, Keith Rucker here at VintageMachinery.org. Guys, today is New Machine Day in the shop. Yes, it has happened again. Yet another orphan machine has found its way to the Keith's wayward home for old worn out machines. And I'm really very happy and proud to have this new addition to the shop. And this is a very unusual machine for me in that when I got it, it's completely operational. And appears to be in pretty good shape. Don't know much about the history of this machine, and I have not tried it out at all yet. So we're going to be playing around with it today and trying to figure it out a little bit and see exactly what it's capable of. What is this? This is a surface grinder. It is a Thompson. The chuck on it it's designed for 6 inches by 20 inches. Although my magnetic chuck that is on this one is 6 inches by 18 inches. I don't have a mag chuck on there that's a full 20 inches that I would like to have. But anyway, that's what came with it. That's what we've got. That's what we'll use. Some of you guys are going to ask, why a surface grinder? Because I already have a surface grinder. I have my Landis. It's an 8 or 9 inch by 24. It's actually a little bit larger capacity. But I was real interested in this surface grinder for a couple of reasons. Number one, this surface grinder is completely automatic and hydraulic. Now, while my Landis machine was automatic, it was mechanical. And the big thing there was when the table moved back and forth, there was a rack and pinion up underneath that table that moves it back and forth. And whenever you would grind something, you could see that rack, the little marks in that rack as it went back and forth. You got a little bit of up and down in there. It wasn't much. In fact, with a tenths indicator, you really couldn't even hardly measure it, but I could see it with my eyes, and it just always kind of aggravated me a little bit. The other thing is that machine's just real jerky. It's just boom, 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 being the mechanical machine. I've really been wanting to get a hydraulic machine because they're just so much smoother, and I don't know. This one here's got a few features in it that one over there doesn't have that we're going to talk about, that I really think that this is a better design. And anyway, we're going to try it out and see it. I'm not going to get rid of my Landis, at least not right now, mainly because it has larger capacity. And a lot of times I do need to grind larger stuff. I got another 4 inches, or really 6 inches in length on that one compared to this one, and another 2 inches wide, so I got a much larger footprint on that Landis grinder than I do on this one. Ideally, I would really like to get another larger grinder, even larger than the Landis, something like a 48-inch table that I could put something like a machine bed on, something like maybe like 12 by 48 or 18 by 48. A pretty good size grinder ultimately would be what I would like to do, and then I'd probably part with that Landis and then have this one for small stuff, which would do most of what I need, and then that larger one if I ever wanted to grind, again, like a Bridgeport table or something like that, stick it up on there and do some grinding. But hey, those are just dreams. Maybe one day we can find us a big grinder. This Thompson grinder, I'm a big fan of these. I've got a friend of mine that has one, and I've just really been impressed with it. John Terry, my friend down in Florida, has got one that will do 40 inches. I think it's 12 by 40. Really, really nice machine. Does an absolutely fabulous job. And when this one came up, I really just wanted to go grab it. One of my buddies, Cash Masters, who up at Kinetic, up in Milwaukee, that is a professional grinding shop. His comment on these Thompson grinders is it's just the most overbuilt grinder of its size out there, or one of the most overbuilt grinders. This thing it's built like a tank. And in the world of surface grinding, that is a good thing. The more stable the foundation, the better off you are. Let's kind of give you a quick look at it, and I need to get this machine leveled up, and we're going to do a little test grinding on it today. So let me show you some things about it that's a little bit unique and different than my Landis grinder. All right, well, let's start by just kind of looking at a few little differences on this grinder versus my other one. First off, you've got a handle here where you can move the table back and forth. It's also automatic, so whenever we turn the machine on, I'll go ahead and do that. And we can just go over here and see how nice and smooth that is. It's completely hydraulic. It's variable speed. I can adjust it by moving this dial, or that's pretty much wide open right there. Of course, you can adjust the stroke by moving these stops in and out. You can manually do it right there. I just love how smooth that is. On my old machine, on that Landis, if you were to do this, it just goes click, 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 bump, bump, bump every time it does that. So we'll let that go. This is the height. So this basically moves the cutter up and down on the column, very similar to my other one, but look at the big hand wheel here. And this is gradiated out, so you got really fine adjustment. And for super fine adjustment, you can use this knob and kind of turn it by hand so that it just has a gear reduction in it. Now, it also has some automatic features so that I can set this machine that whenever, for example, whenever we have a stroke go left and right, if I put it on the table, you hear it clicking there. Watch this here. It's going to move down on whatever you have it adjusted for on every stroke. So that's one way you can do it. The other way is I'm going to turn that feature off. You can also do it where whenever you make a pass in this direction, it automatically feeds down. And that'll be the next thing I'm going to show you here. Now this is what's different on this machine versus my other one. On my old machine, when the work moves under the grinder, the table moves in and out. On this one, the head is actually going to move in and out. It's got waves up here, and we'll go ahead and turn that on. And if you look, now this thing is moving in and out. I got it on its fastest speed. Of course, you got variable speed here, just like you do on the other thing. I can move that in and out real, basically just barely get it crawling. But you see it moving in and out. And just like before, this would be more common than probably doing it with the table, but say I want to just, every time this thing makes a pass, I want to drop it down a half a thou. I can put this on head, and now whenever it gets to the end, click, move it down automatically. There's a micrometer stop over here that I can adjust how far it's going to move on each stroke. And anyway, you can adjust all that kind of stuff to get it going just like you want. That's a really nice feature there, because if I'm doing a bunch of grinding, I don't have to make a pass and manually move it down each time like I had to with my other machine. When you're just doing a bunch of grinding, I would probably have that cross feed going much slower in a real production environment, and probably have this going even a little bit faster, something like that. Spindle's on a separate piece there. We turn that on, and the spindle goes in and out. I'm just going to turn that off right now. I can also manually do this. I have to pull something over back here, and right now it's disconnected, but I can manually move this in and out by hand up here. And this is actually got gradations on it, so I can tell how far I'm moving it. So if you're doing some precision grinding and want to get in on something, don't want it moving automatically, you can do some very precision stuff right there. So one of the really cool features of this machine is this little feature right here. It has a built-in wheel dresser that's actually on the machine itself. So I've got a real short stroke going right now just over that wheel, but when I want to dress this wheel, I just take this piece, there's a diamond nib in there, and you get it on the wheel itself. There we go. And we can just go back and forth and dress that wheel off. So the really cool feature about this is you don't have to put a diamond on the table and change your height and all that. Obviously, when you do this, you're reducing the diameter of your wheel a little bit. So you're going to have to make that adjustment, but you can keep track of how much you're dressing off and adjust your height accordingly. Really, really slick feature. It's going to be a big time saver. One thing that I've probably been a little bit lazy about on my other machine is you get down to the end, you need to dress the wheel for that final pass, and you just don't want to change your setup, so you just kind of go for it. Well, now when I get down to that final bit, I can just real easily come in here, put a fresh dress on there, and go off with it. Now, what you want to do is back that off after you're through dressing, so it's not just running up against that diamond, but you can just leave it really close. But this is going to be a game changer, I think. Another really cool feature of this machine that I really like, and I'm not set up to use it quite yet. I got to get some coolant, but it has a built-in coolant tank. You fill this up with water, you put a water-soluble coolant in it, which I've got to get some in the shop. And it's got a pump right here that's going to just pump right out of this and put flood coolant onto your part. So this is, again, I think going to be a game changer. I've been using a little Cool Mist, and I've kind of got it set up for today because I don't have any coolant yet. Whenever you're grinding fluid after it comes off is going to be contaminated with grinding dust and whatever. It drops down into this first tank right here, which is a settling tank. And the water raises up. It goes over the top of this tank into this compartment. And then this compartment has a hole in the bottom of that tank, so a lot of times you'll have trash that's floating around on the top of the water. So in this case, the water's coming in from the bottom and it actually pumps out of this tank. So you have some built-in separation that's going on. So while you're sitting here pumping out of here, again, all your heavy stuff's going to settle here. Anything that's floating is going to be captured in these two tanks, and then you're going to have fresh, clean coolant pumping out of this one, keeping all that trash from going through the impellers on your pump. There's a little switch here that's got a float in it, so it automatically, when the water level gets below a certain point, it will just automatically shut off. And I have tested it out. It appears to be motors running. I'm assuming it's going to pump as well. So that's, again, I'm really excited about that. I've got some coolant ordered. I don't have it in yet, and hopefully we'll be able to use that coming up real soon. So another thing that's a little bit unique about this machine, a little bit different from other machines in my shop, is that this machine, I did not realize this until I got it into my shop, but it only runs on 440 volts, three-phase. Really every other machine in my shop that's three-phase runs on 220 volts, three-phase, and that's what I'm really set up for. So that presented a little bit of challenge. Now, why is that? Well, most three-phase motors are dual voltage. You can run them on either 220 volts or 440 volts, depending on how you have the wires put together in the motor. So coming out of that motor, there's going to be 9 wires, and there's usually a diagram on the motor plate that tells you for 220 volts or 440 volts which wires go together to run at that voltage. This motor right here, the spindle motor, is 440 volts only, and actually this is a dual speed motor. It will run at 2 different RPMs depending on, I really don't know why, because as far as I can tell, we're not utilizing that feature on this motor, but because it is a dual speed motor, it will only run on 220 volts, at least according to the information on the nameplate. So when I got it, it wasn't one that I could just go swap some wires around, change out some heaters on my motor starters, and just go with like I normally can. So what we ended up doing was putting a transformer on here. Now, I reached out to my friends at American Rotary. You guys know American Rotary is a sponsor of my channel here. They're the guys who make the rotary phase converter that I use in my shop. I've got a 40 horsepower American Rotary phase converter that generates the 3-phase power that I use in my shop. And I've got my whole shop wired, and it's at 220 volts. They also sell transformers, and you can call them up and tell them they've got a whole huge selection of transformers for different applications. I told them, what we were needed for this machine, and they were able to source me a transformer here that basically we're feeding it with 220 volt three-phase, and out the other side it steps up the voltage to go to 440 volts, which goes into my control panel here. Everything works great. This is a standard solution that you see very often when you need to change voltages in a shop. You can use a transformer to do that. Same thing the power company does. You got a transformer coming off the lines outside. It's usually a step down transformer coming from high voltage on the lines outside to the line voltage that's inside your shop or house or building or whatever. But you can easily step it up or down, whatever you need to do for a particular machine. This particular transformer, you can actually, there's about a dozen different possible ways to wire this thing up for different incoming and outgoing voltages. You can set it up all kinds of different ways. But we've got it set up, again, 220 volts in, 440 volts out. It's the only 440 volt machine I've got in my shop, at least right now. So I just mounted this transformer to the machine, and it is now just part of the machine. So I plug this into my 220 volt three-phase power, and it magically does the rest. So anyway, if you need transformers, reach out to American Rotary. They can be your friend, and they can help you out there. Well, guys, I've taken the splash guard off the front. You can see the chuck here. Now we're going to level this machine up here in just a minute to get it ready to kind of start up with and do our first grind. But before I do, I just want to mention a little bit about the history of this machine that I know. I really don't know a lot of the history. All I know is that from the guy that I got this from, he told me that he had gotten the machine, I think it was about 10 years ago, from a friend of his who had just recently had passed away. And his friend had found this machine, and according to the guy that I got it from, and what this means, I don't really know, and he didn't know the details either, but apparently the gentleman who passed away that he got it from, he had sent this machine off to have it rebuilt. Now, what does that mean? Again, I don't know. Does that mean that they took the machine down, re-scraped everything, whatever? Or did they just slap a coat of paint on it? You can tell it's got a fresh coat of paint on it. And while the paint job is not bad, it's not the best paint job in the world either. It's not a bad paint job, but it's not. You can tell that they just slapped a coat of paint on it. They didn't strip off all the old paint first and what have you. It's not bad, guys, but it's not great either. So I don't know if this machine has been rebuilt as far as having ways re-scraped and all that. I'm not going to tear into it until I start using it and see if it needs some attention as far as scraping and so forth like that. The good news is that I know from my friend John Terry down in Florida, this machine is a fairly easy machine to rebuild, at least this part here. You just take the table off, and it's not a big deal to re-scrape this thing in. So if I see there's an issue, this might be something we tear into and rebuild. More than likely, it's going to be just fine. And hopefully, the rebuild that was done was a good job, and someone actually knew what they were doing and actually touched this machine up and got it running really nice and true. We'll see. We will see. Like I said, you don't ever know what someone means when they say rebuild. It means a lot of different things to a lot of different people. We'll find out. So before I start leveling it up, I thought I'd show you these little feet I've got up underneath the machine. So on this, there's 4 leveling screws around the grinder. With the surface grinder, it's a very precision machine. It's absolutely critical that you get this machine leveled out before you start using it. If you ever go just plop a surface grinder down in your shop and don't level it, and it's not grinding the way it should, very often, if you'll just properly level the machine, it'll make a huge difference in the quality grinds that you get. So very important step. Notice that I've got the leveling screws. They go down. On my concrete, I want to have a larger pad for that screw to go into. You can just put a little disc of metal or whatever up underneath there. I've got these. I think there's a 4-inch diameter. These are some cutouts that a guy that does a bunch of work on a plasma cutter He's constantly cutting holes out of plate. I'll just go in there and buy some of these little cutout discs from him that are basically the insides of holes. They're scrap. He'll sell them to me, but they're pretty cheap. But I usually try to keep some of those in the shop. And on these, I actually welded a little riser that goes up a couple of inches, and then there's an indentation in the top of that for that set screw to go down into. Now, the reason I like doing this is that I can come in here with a pallet jack and I can just go roll right up underneath this machine. So if I ever want to move this machine for whatever reason, I don't have to jack it up off the floor to get a pallet jacked up underneath it. And it raises it up about 2 or 3 inches off the floor. It's also nice if you drop something on the floor and it rolls up under the machine, I got enough room I can get in there and reach up under the machine and pick up a screw or whatever, because how many times does that happen, guys? All the time. So I really like this solution. I've got this on a lot of my machines. Just about everything in my shop I've got set up where I can come in there with a pallet jack, pick it up and move it. I've got it sitting up off of the floor. But the important thing is to have that larger footprint. You've got that weight, instead of coming down to a single point and just touching four corners of your concrete. When you have a 4-inch diameter, you'd have to do the math, but that is several square inches of contact onto your concrete. Most concrete is rated for so many pounds per square inch. When you increase the size of that pad up underneath it, you're decreasing the weight at a single point on that concrete. You're spreading it out a little bit. It makes a huge difference. A little bit of surface area goes a long way towards spreading that weight out on the floor. So anyway, I just thought I'd show those. So before we get started here, the first thing I want to do is stone this this magnetic chuck. I can feel some little high spots on there. This is always important. Anytime I go to use my surface grinder, the first thing I'm going to do is stone that mag chuck and just make sure that this got all the little ridges knocked down. One thing I've noticed is you got dissimilar materials in here. You got these little coils, and I find that a lot of times over time it'll like raise up just a little bit. This material in there will raise up just a little bit, and if you don't stone these down, you're not clamping straight down on there. It's just a tiny amount, but it really can make a big difference when you're shooting for precision, which is what you're using a surface grinder for. So those were fairly rough, but they feel good now. And next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to put my level up on here, and I am using a Fell precision level. It's called an all-way level, and it's got a bubble in here, and it actually will you can get things level in both directions at one time. Now, you want to use a good precision level to level your machines. A carpenter's level is not good enough. Carpenter's level is plenty fine for building a house, but again, when you're dealing with a precision instrument like a surface grinder, you need higher precision than that. Your typical Starrett machinist levels, they're accurate. Each line on that level is accurate to 0.005 of an inch per foot. So for every 1 foot, every line on that bubble, you're picking it up 0.005 of an inch on one end. They're a lot better. This level, the Starrett Master Precision level, the Starrett 199, this one's going to be accurate to 0.005 per foot. So this thing here is super ticky, but when you get this thing leveled up, it is dead nuts level. Again, 0.005 per foot is not very much at all. I can't get my camera pointing straight down on this level, but you can kind of see what's going on. Right now, again, we just plopped this thing down on the floor, and I have not done any leveling to it at all. It looks like, well, number one, the bubble's maxed out on this side, so we need to raise up this side over here. When you do, you see the bubble moves in the other direction. So we need to raise this end up. It looks like it's pretty decent front to back, although once we get that level where it's not bottomed out down there, we'll know a little bit better. So let me get some wrenches, and we'll start cranking on this thing and adjusting it up. I'm going to start with this back corner back here. And I can't see the level while I'm adjusting, so I'm just gonna take a couple of cranks and see what's going on. Looks like it moved it. I'm gonna do this corner over here next, the front left corner of the machine. We'll raise it up a couple of rotations here. All right. So I need to do about the same thing again on the other side. And so I'm gonna go back to the back left corner. I'm doing two, not full turns, it's actually probably about a third of a turn of the bolt is what it comes out to be. All right, keep on going. It's coming up. All right, that moved a bunch. I'm on the back side again. Let's see what we got there. All right, keep on coming up here. I'm on the front now. Maybe a little bit too far. Let's raise this back side up now. All right, looks like I've got it left to right pretty good, but now the front is a little bit high, so I'm gonna lower both of these front bolts down. I don't know, probably an eighth of a turn. See where that goes. All right, that was a little bit too much. You can see a little bit goes a long way on this thing. So let me raise them both back up just a little bit. I'm on this front left corner. I'm dropping it down. I'm barely moving the bolt. I mean, just barely moving it. You can see that bubble is going a long way. This level is so accurate, it will make you pull your hair out. I'm going on the front right now, just a tad. Too much. All right. We are getting really, 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 really close. I'm within a half a thou in either direction. I'm talking about just barely moving my wrench here. I think we're going to call it. It's within a half a thou. You guys aren't looking straight down on it like I am, so it may look a little bit different in the camera. Yeah, it looks a lot different in the camera, but it's within a half a thou. We're going to call it good right there, at least for now. We may fine tune it a little bit later on, but this will get us a good place to start. Well, guys, I think that's going to be a wrap on this video. We've got our machine all leveled up, and upcoming next, we're going to be showing you grinding in the chuck, getting all that done, and actually doing some, we're going to actually machine apart and do some grinding and check it out, see everything looks good on it. So all that's going to be coming up in an upcoming video. As always, thanks for watching. Please subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Those thumbs up and comments, like we always say, greatly appreciated. And hit that bell icon to get the notifications of new videos being posted. And we'll catch you on the next video. Again, thanks for watching.